Hey class, welcome to part two of my attempt to build a research paragraph for paper number two and demonstrate how I'm going to integrate these quotes that are not literary in nature. So I'm going to take you back to the paragraph I had and I'll show you, see I've done some work on it, a little bit, not much, but I just want to show you what the work was, and so I turned it in red. So I changed a couple things here, like Erdrich herself. I had that she is, I decided to make it was born half Chippewa. Then I added this line here, again, taking information that was available from more than one source, and so I didn't feel like I needed to cite it. It's kind of well known. She spent much of her early life surrounded by Native Americans, even learning Ojibwe herself, largely through contact with her grandfather, a tribal chief. Although that's a good use of information about Erdrich's life, and I wanted to get some more biographical material in there. Yeah, I just went on and added this part here. Topic is relevant. Any examination of the effects of PTSD on returning vets. I added that because I wanted to remind myself what is going on. Oh yeah, I'm trying to connect Erdrich's life to the story. To the story subject and her life doesn't really connect too much to PTSD exactly, but it does connect this idea of loss of community and inability to integrate. And you saw I integrated this quote here about the Native American people and how they're connected to land. And then I started going into the story, and that's kind of where I stopped. You'll see I used the story a couple times here, and I did it because again, I don't have a ton of material that is real direct about connecting Erdrich to PTSD in Vietnam. I do have material connecting her to Native Americans and their need for community. So let's go. Let's see what I wrote. I wrote in the story, we see Henry definitely begins as someone who's automatically comfortable in his surroundings regardless of where he is. This is shown during the road trip the brothers take in the red convertible. Both of the Lamartines seem entirely at home wherever they are. For that summer before Henry goes to Vietnam, they live freely without any particular agenda or plan. And all this is backing up the idea of Native American people being kind of connected to their surroundings. An example of this is clear in Lyman's description of the month they spend camping at Susie's home in Alaska. And from your paper one, you should recognize, oh, that is a setup right there. He's ready for the quote. Then I took this quote. The sun doesn't truly set there in the summer, and the night is more a soft dusk. You might doze off sometimes. Before you know it, you're up again like an animal in nature. You never feel like you have to sleep hard or put away the world. That's my citation. This is my reconnection now. The entire road trip underlines how the brothers are essentially linked to the natural world in a way that modern America is not. This natural ease of life, which Erdrich was familiar with from own experience with her Ojibwe family, contrasts sharply with Henry's experiences in Vietnam. I put this in here, right here. I did this specifically because I wanted to I want to remind the reader, hey, I'm connecting Erdrich's life to the story. That's the idea here. So again, I didn't cite this. I just thought it's kind of common knowledge. I went with one more story quote then. When he comes home, Lyman's description of him reveals a person who's in some way broken. And now there's my description of Henry doesn't laugh. It sounds like he's choking. People won't talk around him. People leave him alone. I don't blame them. That's Lyman saying it was a fact Henry was jumpy and mean. I kind of want to I'm trying to wrap up the paragraph here. I want to get to the other quote I have to use, which is this one right here. I want to use this one about the quote about coming home, and because the idea we linked to Erdrich, and it's not so much about her life, but about her experience with Native American literature, which to me makes it that's easy to suggest that she got that from the stories that she listened to so much about from her grandfather and from other Native Americans. The point being, it's coming home, returning land. So now I know this comes from Mark Anthony Rollo in the Progressive. I don't know who that is, and I don't know. The Progressive is just it's not important to validate this with this information here. Um, this is basically just somebody recalling something that Erdrich once said. Since Erdrich, it's connected to Erdrich, I just want this part of the quote. So I'm going to take that, pull it down here. Let's see. I haven't set it up yet, but I know I'm coming to this quote, so I'm just gonna put it down here and remind myself this is where you're going. Don't forget, you got to get over here. All right. I'll double space it, make it nice and neat. Okay. Okay, so I just finished a quote talking about how Henry's been affected by being in Vietnam, and then I've got to get to this quote where it tells me Erdrich is about talks about Native Americans about coming home and returning, not about going off somewhere. I want to use that because Henry is doing the exact opposite. It's almost like he left behind Native American tradition when he goes to Vietnam. Let's see how I can do that. All right. Yeah. Okay. Henry is clearly suffering from the effects of his time in Vietnam, which forms the main conflict of the story. In Erdrich's view, Native American culture has a tradition of stories where people come home or reintegrate into their community. Okay, I think I'm just, yeah, all right. I've got to explain why I'm doing this, but I think I have set this up, and this is not that long a quote. I've got to, let's keep the font the same. I will now do this. Now you might be thinking, well, you didn't do anything to validate this quote, Mr. Dow. I thought you were going to validate it. Yeah, I don't think I need to validate it. It's you can find out where it is. I mean, if quotes have statistics and numbers and sort of scientific facts, then I do feel a need to validate them ahead of time. Where I say, look, this comes from a study conducted in New Zealand, da 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 da, or this is from this researcher from Johns Hopkins University. I would say stuff like that before the quote. This idea that she once said this is not something that's out of left field or that is something that's data driven. So I don't, it flows into what I'm writing about. So I'm going to leave it like this. I did set it up with the idea, though. I told you what the idea was coming beforehand. Now we've got it. So reading again. In her view, Native American culture has a tradition of stories where people come home and reintegrate in their community. This quote just backs that up. Everything was used Native American coming home, returning to land, language, themed opposite Western literature about embarking on a journey, finding adventures beyond one's beginnings. Only two quote marks here. In the red convertible, it is as if Erdrich creates a character, Henry, who falls out of Native American culture by going to war for a cause that has nothing to do with him or his tribe. In other words, that's always a good thing to do. In other words, and re-explain it. He reverses the tradition that Erdrich. Now here I'm going to slide it back to her life. That Erdrich learned from growing up among Native American storytellers. One thing you might notice, you're saying, "Oh, Mr. Dow, this is ridiculous. Your paragraph's getting on page 3." Well, first, no, that's not ridiculous. Sometimes that happens. And second, I've done this so long, it's like I don't have any trouble expanding my thoughts. So don't feel like, oh, you got to get your paragraphs to get to the third page. I threw in a couple story quotes. I didn't have to do that. I could just refer to the story. So I know it's getting a little long. I'm about ready to wrap this up. Let's say I'm going to do another sentence or two here. I will wrap it up. By wrapping it up, I have to connect things back together. I have to talk about how her childhood again prepared her to write this story because she understood this idea of community and the loss of community being something that could really cause someone to have suicide or to commit suicide if you're Native American. So you kind of see what I did there. Hopefully that helped. I built a paragraph. I built this paragraph on rock. I didn't build it on rock and roll. I built it on two annotated note sheets, which just show me all the sources I had and what the stuff I thought would work. Notice all the stuff didn't work. And when I actually got down to writing, I thought, nah, it's not that good. As I wrote, I felt free to go back and use some other stuff if I remembered it. But I basically just used the material I already had on my annotated note sheets. And I certainly went back and revised as I went. I ended up with 2 sources and the story itself, which counts as the third source. And you have a rough draft paragraph here that is in some way biographical. All right, well, that's the way this one worked. If you have questions about quote integration, when you've got a source, you're not sure what to do with, your best bet is to send it to me on an email to ask me questions about it. I'm happy to help. All right, guys, if you made it all the way through this 2-part screencast, congratulations. You're a good student. Okay, bye-bye.